Hi, it's James Suckling. I'm here in Margaret River with senior editor Nick Stock and my son Jack Suckling. We're tasting, but we wanted to take a quick break and do our first podcast and video talking about Margaret River, our tasting in Australia, our tour, and searching for real Aussie wines. So we've already tasted quite a few wines, maybe 100 or so in Margaret River. So what are you guys thinking? Like, what are you thinking about the trip? What are you looking for in real Aussie wines? You know, everyone wants to know. We're hashmark real Aussie wines, tasting 2,800 wines. What are you looking for in Australian wines in the tasting this year, Nick?
Well, starting here in Margaret River, it's the stronghold of Cabernet, in Australia. So I think here we're gonna really set the benchmark for Australian Cabernet while we're in Margaret River, and Chardonnay is also the other thing over here that is that's going to really give us it's going to give us a good indication of where the high watermark is for Chardonnay, and it's very competitive. Once we head east from here into Victoria, it's kind of like it's enemy territory. There's a real rivalry between sort of Margaret River and Victoria and Tasmania. It's a healthy rivalry, but it's a strong one. So it's going to be setting the benchmark.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I was actually quite impressed also by some of the Shiraz that I had, not necessarily from Margaret River, but also from Great Southern. We already had some really excellent Shiraz, so I was obviously expecting the Cabernet to be really good and the Chardonnay, but it was great to see some really well-made Shiraz as well.
I don't know if you guys agree, but what I like about the wines in general from down here is their purity of fruit, ripeness of tannins, but they're not at all jammy. They have this beautiful ripe fruit character, but at the same time, really they're fresh and they show this brightness and acidity and clarity in fruit. And again, the Shiraz, people talk about Cabernet so much down here, but Shirazes are beautiful, and there's some that are really Northern Rhone-like.
Yeah, Franklin River, and once you head into other parts of Western Australia, that sort of Great Southern region, there's some amazing Shiraz country there. And South Australia is such a big big presence in Australian wine, and a big presence in terms of Shiraz. So the wines here do kind of get missed sometimes in the messaging. I guess that's why we're here. That's what this tour is all about. We're coming here so that we make sure we find these wines and get the message out there. And
consumers can pretty much, as I remember with vintages, they can buy across the board. There really hasn't been a difficult vintage since 14.
They've had, the vintages here, because of the influence of the ocean. It is so strong, on so many of the wine growing areas. The vintage variation doesn't swing super hard. There's very there's enviable consistency in this part of Australia, compared to over east. So but then that thing you said, that freshness, is something that you're right. It really, the wines here have this intensity of flavour. They have great concentration. There's mature vines here now. It's not a new thing at all, and a new generation of winemakers in the mix who are, I think, sort of really digging into what is the pure essence of terroir in this part of Australia.
And what for me as a born and raised Californian, Southern Californian, it's exciting to be here. Amazing surf, really great food, beautiful air, scenery. It's like going back to California in the 60s. And it's just such an amazing place. And then you have these really fun and delicious and beautiful wines.
Yeah, we had a nice kayak this morning down the Margaret River, which was a pretty amazing experience. That certainly one to tick off the bucket list, but there's a real synergy, I think, between the beautiful wines and the amazing terroir and scenery.
Yeah, there is, and I think the people that come here are here. They're here for the place, and the fact that wine is all about a sense of place, and so I think that the character of the wines down here is very distinctive, and people are very, I think people have respect for that sort of for wanting to express that sense of place in the way they make the wines down here, because they're sort of so affected by their surroundings. I mean, going past that Warcliffe area, it's an old Aboriginal burial ground. It says, culturally, you think there's potentially 60,000 years of human kind of history. As you're canoeing down Margaret River at 7 o'clock in the morning in the mist, the place has a real feeling.
And we were saying that the soils here, I mean, they're some of the oldest on planet Earth, aren't they?
Yeah, very, very old soils. A lot of laterite. A huge amount of iron in the soil here, and they're very interesting soils for for winemakers to play with. And the wines definitely, they definitely have a strong relationship with the dirt here. The sandier soils, the gravelly soils, these very, very oldest soils on the planet.
I think it's cool too how the wines, even if some of the bigger, more structured Cabernets, that they're so approachable when they're young too. Like, you taste them and you want to drink them now, but that they'll age well. Have you found that even how do they age? That's what I was thinking. They have such approachability now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've been lucky enough to do some incredible vertical tastings of producers like Cullen and Vas Felix and Cape Mentelle, the pioneering producers here in Margaret River, and it's pretty wild when you realise that it's around 20 to 25 years after vintage that these wines are really hitting their straps. And then you sort of think about the wines today and how well they are made. The quality of viticulture here is in 2019 is incredible. It's absolutely at the forefront. And so you think about the wines being made today and how those wines are going to look in sort of 20 or more years. And they're incredible wines to have in your cellar. They really, really are.
What do you think, Jack? I mean, you're in your early 20s tasting these wines. Does it excite you? I know you like a lot of the really cool wines from Europe and the US. Like, how do you view this as someone that's newer to wine?
I think I really appreciate just the clarity of the wines from Western Australia. I think they're just, you can see they're really well made. I mean, so far we haven't had any, at least I haven't had any really jammy wines at all. I mean, I guess the climate is difficult actually to make jammy wines. But I think just the freshness, approachability, the drinkability, those firm tannins, really fresh, vibrant fruit and herb characters. I think those are just really make them, at the very least, crowd pleasers. But obviously, and then also you can make really serious wines as well. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. Yeah, the wines they're instantly likable. And then the fruit is so vibrant in the wines, and then the structure is so kind of so well proportioned and so balanced. They're just like they're very, very easy wines to love when they're young, and then they're if you want to put these wines away, they're going to be great wines to have. When you and I are no longer around, Jack will be sitting back drinking all the Margaret River Cabernets because they're going to last for a long time.
I hope that's not too soon.
If you haven't already drunk all of it.
Yeah, that's probably more like it. I know there's some debate here as well about sub regions within all of Margaret River. It's a particular debate for winemakers here. Like, for me, I still think that, why should they do that when the region of Margaret River isn't even that well known yet globally? But I mean, Nick, what's your take on it, being Australian, covering the scene down here for a long time?
I mean, the differences are real and the differences are tangible, but I think it's it's good to include that as a part of the language of the wines, and it you can taste it. But I wouldn't be rushing to, make it legislation or to sort of lock it down. I think the freedom to, the freedom to make wine in Australia is something that is a real asset, and that you can certainly make single site wines. You can make wines that reflect sub-regionality, and they do taste different. But that's part of the language and part of the discussion. I wouldn't be rushing to to rule the boundaries and cut it into law. I think there's a lot more to be explored before we start taking that step. But it is part of and that way people can dial in. They can just taste. They can drink a Margaret River wine and enjoy it. They can drink a Woolly Abrut wine, love that. They can drink a wine from Warcliffe or Bujadup, down here in the south, and they can appreciate the coolness of those wines. But that's all there, and it's all kind of talked about. And there is actually a real rivalry here in Margaret River, and it's a friendly, it's sort of that Australian kind of friendly kind of rivalry between the north and the south. And it does for some people probably cut a bit deeper than a friendly rivalry, but I think really it's best sort of played at that level for the time being, and still have the freedom to make wine.
It's interesting. So we have so many wines. Almost all the wines are screw caps.
Yeah.
Which is fun. I mean, it's quick tasting because you're not worrying about corvanning or pulling corks or whatever. Pretty quick, but probably a lot of people wonder, and it's a thing throughout New Zealand and Australia with screw caps, the aging. So we know it ages, but I think it ages a little bit differently than corks. It's a little bit more reductive. The wines don't change that much for a long time. What do you think about all of that, Nick?
Yeah, look, my experience, I've had screw cap wines, as old as late 70s vintages, and the wines definitely do age. The big difference is that winemakers make or finish wines to be sealed under screw cap, in a particular way. So you sort of, it's an important part of the winemaking process to think about how you're bottling your wine and how you're closing that bottle. And Australian winemakers are I would say, leading, in a global sense in terms of understanding how to bottle under screw cap. The difference is they age consistently. They don't, as you said, they don't have that sort of, post bottling shock, and then they come up for a while and they have a dip again, and then they sort of eventually plateau out. You see less of that. But I think, in terms of particularly wines like, the Cabernets from here, if you buy a dozen, you put them in your cellar, and you probably don't want to really drink them for a decade. When you start opening them, there's not going to be, a great bottle, a lousy bottle, and some okay bottles. They're all going to be great bottles, and that's, I think that's the thing. You get the wine the way the winemaker put it into the bottle, and you get, and the closure doesn't kind of intercept that wine's journey. The wine goes on the same journey, and I think that that for people that collect wine is a real asset. Because you can crack the first bottle in the dozen. You can say, I think this is starting to drink well. In two more years, you can revisit and say, wow, it's in the zone, and you've got 10 or 11 bottles out of your dozen that you can drink exactly when you want. Whereas with cork, it's a moving target. You'll open one that's great, you'll open one that looks a bit tired, one that's super fresh, which is surprising and great. But I sort of I think there's something to be said for consistency in the cellar, and that's what it delivers.
But isn't there also something I've heard that some people, especially in Australia, they can actually experiment? I mean, that you can actually buy different screw caps that have like different permeabilities. I remember when we were in Yarra last year, there were a few people who were talking about it and about these different types that you can buy. You can sort of play around a bit with that depending on the wine. And
yeah, I mean the piece of the piece that actually does the job is this little piece inside the little whiting. So that and you can actually you can see there's a different type of screw cap there. That's a different looking screw cap, but inside the mechanism is the same. So you can actually, in terms of your winemaking, decide that you want to have a greater ingress of air, or you can have a tighter seal, or you can have more permeability if you want. And so it's just another step in the winemaking process. So it's it's a very scientific kind of end of winemaking. Some people don't find it that romantic to snap the screw cap off. I find it terribly romantic to drink a great bottle of wine that's mature and in great condition. You know, that for me is the ultimate. That's the ultimate goal.
I don't know. Hold on. You don't think this is romantic? You heard it.
Yeah, it's good.
Snap.
It sounds
It's
crisp.
different. It's not exactly champagne cork, but I don't know. I don't mind it anymore. I'm used to it now. I like it either way. But there's something reassuring, like you said. You do that, and 9.5 times out of 10, or almost always, it's going to be a perfect bottle. There's no, cork taint worry there. So,
and it's not, with cork, a great cork is a great cork. And the wine will be fantastic. It's just that it's the wines that don't appear corked, but just aren't
Flat,
quite
yeah.
there. The flat ones, and they're the ones that that I just worry that people drink these wines and think, wow, James, Jack, Nick gave that score of 96 points to that wine. I bought it and I drank it, and I just didn't really feel it was a great wine, they're the ones where you just think, wow, people aren't getting the right experience. But corks are improving too. I mean, with the rollout of different closures, all of the closure game is kind of like is improving, I think, around the world, and the quality of bottling as well. The actual process of getting the wine out of cask or out of tank and into bottle, the way in which that process is now done across the world is just done at such a higher level of quality than it's ever been done before as well. So it's
I'm with you.
so it's there's a lot of changes.
All right, guys. I think we better get back to tasting. We got a couple hundred to taste a day.
There's so many wines to taste.
But good conversation, and always good to talk about screw caps and corks. That's a subject we always want to explore more and discuss. But in general, this has been a pretty awesome tasting so far. Look forward to checking out the whites, tasting some more awesome reds, and then moving on to Adelaide. So it's going to be fun.
Let's enjoy Margaret River.
All right, mate. Thanks again. Thanks for being with us.